Welcome to the Apple Daily News. This podcast is created by Generative AI. Today is June 25th, 2024. Links to all stories can be found in the episode notes. First up, let's talk about the ongoing saga of iDOS 3. This popular app faced rejection during Apple's review process due to policy changes. The developer had to resubmit the app under a new title after being blacklisted for the previous version. Initially rejected for being too similar to iDOS 2, the app was later rejected for design spam due to multiple submissions with the same design. The developer expressed frustration at Apple's inability to differentiate between original and copycat apps. Despite delays and confusion, the developer remains hopeful for a resolution and plans updates for the app. Apple later contacted the developer, stating that iDOS is not considered a retro game console, suggesting changes for resubmission without clear guidelines on compliance. This situation highlights ongoing challenges with Apple's app review process and criteria. In related news, Apple has rejected two PC emulators, iDOS 3 and UTM-SE, from the App Store. The rejection is based on Guideline 4.7 of the App Review Guidelines, which allows for retro game emulators but specifies that only emulators of retro game consoles are appropriate. The developer of iDOS 3, Chaoji Li, shared Apple's reasoning, stating that the app provides emulator functionality but does not emulate a retro game console specifically. UTM-SE was also rejected for not being a console emulator. Apple's decision-making process has been criticized for being inconsistent, with developers feeling at the mercy of Apple's choices. Despite the rejection, Apple had previously allowed retro game emulators on the App Store in response to antitrust scrutiny. The rejection of these PC emulators comes amidst Apple's efforts to comply with regulations like the Digital Markets Act in the EU. Moving on to privacy concerns, Apple declined an AI partnership with Meta, Facebook's parent company, due to privacy concerns. Talks between Apple and Meta about integrating Meta's large language model into iOS did not progress. Apple chose not to pursue a partnership with Meta, as it did not find Meta's privacy practices stringent enough. Instead, Apple signed a deal with OpenAI to integrate ChatGPT into iOS 18, iPadOS 18, and macOS Sequoia. Apple is also in discussions with Google to integrate Gemini into its operating systems and is exploring a partnership with AI company Anthropic. At WWDC, Apple emphasized providing users with a choice between different AI models and establishing deals with multiple providers. In regulatory news, Apple, Meta, and Google are facing potential fines of billions of euros from the European Union after the EU launched investigations under new laws targeting big tech companies. The investigations focus on various issues, including smartphone app stores and Meta charging a monthly fee to users who want an ad-free experience on Facebook and Instagram. These investigations come shortly after the EU's Digital Markets Act came into effect, aiming to regulate major tech companies. If found guilty, Apple could face a fine of up to £30 billion, Google £30.7 billion, and Meta £13.4 billion. The EU is also considering further investigations into Amazon and Apple for other potential violations. The investigations highlight the EU's efforts to enforce new laws swiftly in response to technological advancements. Apple, Google, and Meta have stated their intentions to engage with the European Commission during the investigations. Apple has disabled WebKit JIT, just-in-time compiler, in lockdown mode, which is described as an extreme protection measure for individuals targeted by sophisticated digital threats. This move affects web browsing by blocking certain complex web technologies, causing websites to load slowly or not operate correctly. The JIT interpreter is one of the technologies disabled in lockdown mode, leading to a significant reduction in JavaScript performance. Apple has introduced Browser Engine Kit to comply with the EU's Digital Markets Act, allowing third-party browser engines while ensuring security by limiting the use of potentially insecure technologies. Developers must meet specific criteria and commit to privacy and security requirements to implement alternative browser engines using Browser Engine Kit. Apple's decision to create Browser Engine Kit reflects their focus on security and compliance with regulations, despite the complexity it introduces. This move aims to balance the need for third-party browser engines with maintaining a secure environment on iOS devices. The EU has accused Apple of violating the Digital Markets Act by imposing rules and fees that restrict app developers from directing consumers to alternative sales channels. The European Commission informed Apple of this violation and initiated a process for Apple to respond to the findings. Apple could face fines of up to 10% of its revenue for these violations. The Commission found that Apple's business terms prevent developers from informing customers of cheaper purchasing options and promoting offers on alternative distribution channels. Additionally, Apple was accused of charging excessive fees, including a fee for every purchase made within 7 days after a link out from an app. Apple has made changes to comply with the DMA, but is still under investigation for its core technology fee and other contractual requirements for third-party app developers. Apple's delay in launching certain features in the EU is attributed to regulatory uncertainties brought about by the Digital Markets Act. At WWDC 2024, Apple unveiled Apple Intelligence, a system that integrates generative AI into existing products like Safari, Messages, Notes, and Siri to enhance user experience. The focus is on personal context and unique differentiation with on-device and cloud processing. Apple's generative AI strategy aims to provide practical features for users without rendering the apps unfamiliar. The company's data centers for private cloud compute operate entirely on renewable energy sources. Users have control over using ChatGPT and can opt out of Apple Intelligence. The features are not yet available for testing, but Apple's efforts in generative AI show competitiveness in the field. The announcement of a partnership with OpenAI was misunderstood, as most features revealed were powered by Apple's own technology, not OpenAI. Overall, Apple's move towards integrating generative AI features into its core platforms demonstrates a commitment to innovation and user experience. Apple has been making efforts to automate iPhone assembly, aiming to reduce the number of workers on assembly lines by up to 50% over the next few years. This decision came after COVID-19-related disruptions in China impacted iPhone assembler Foxconn. Apple has approved high-cost automation projects for iPhone assembly, resulting in a significant amount of automation in iPhone 15 production. However, challenges have arisen due to manufacturing complexities, leading to the cancellation of some automation processes for the iPhone 16 series. Apple's push for automation could potentially shift more iPhone assembly to countries like India, Vietnam, and Thailand to diversify its supply chain in Southeast Asia. The move towards automation is detailed in a report by The Information. Apple has decided to pause its plans for a 3,000-job campus in Research Triangle Park, North Carolina, which was announced over 3 years ago. The construction at the site has not yet begun, and Apple is working with North Carolina officials to extend the timeline for the project by 4 years. This pause may mean that Apple will not collect state incentives during this period. Despite the delay, Apple remains committed to the project and has emphasized its dedication to growing its teams in North Carolina. The company had planned to invest $1 billion over 10 years in Research Triangle Park and create at least 3,000 jobs. Local officials have expressed confidence in the project's future, despite the setback. The delay in Apple's project comes at a time when another major project, electric vehicle maker VinFast's 7,500 job factory in Chatham County, is also facing uncertainty. visionOS 2 Beta 2 has been released for Apple Vision Pro users following the initial beta release. This update addresses user feedback and introduces features like spatial photos, a Mac virtual display with higher resolution, customizable home view, new hand gestures for easier navigation, travel mode for trains, guest user option, and enhancements to the Apple TV app and Mindfulness app. Apple has also released beta versions of iOS 18, iPadOS 18, watchOS 11, macOS Sequoia, and tvOS 18. The update aims to improve the user experience and functionality of Apple Vision Pro devices. The iOS and iPadOS 18 Beta 2 release notes provide detailed information on various aspects of the new software update. The SDK supports app development for iPhone and iPad, running iOS and iPadOS 18 Beta 2, and comes bundled with Xcode 16. Some of the resolved issues include fixes related to accessibility, accessory setup, activity sharing, ad attribution, app intents, App Store, assistive access, audio, calculator, camera, CarPlay, and more. New features like re-engagement support in Ad Attribution Kit, increased on-demand resources limits in the App Store, and improvements in FaceTime for low data mode are highlighted. Known issues and workarounds for different functionalities like App Intent, Apple Cache, handwriting, keyboard, lock screen, maps, Reality Kit, Swift UI, translation, wallet, widget kit, and more are also mentioned. Additionally, new features, resolved issues, and known issues for various components like UI Kit, Weather Kit, Widget Kit, and widgets are detailed in the release notes. Lastly, the VlogMonitor app allows you to film yourself using your iPhone's rear camera and view yourself on your iPad simultaneously. By connecting both devices to the same Wi-Fi network, you can easily mirror your screen from one device to the other. The app allows you to mirror your screen from iPhone or iPad to various devices like iPhone, iPad, Mac, or Vision Pro, providing flexibility for vlogging. The latest version of the app was released on June 22, 2024, with a size of 35 megabytes and a price of $4.99. The app's privacy policy includes handling of data such as usage data and diagnostics, but this data is not linked to your identity. The developer of the app is DMA LLC. The app is compatible with iPhone, iPad, Mac, and Apple Vision devices. It has an age rating of 4+ and supports family sharing for up to 6 family members. For more information, you can visit the developer's privacy policy and support pages. That's all for today's episode of the Apple Daily News. Be sure to check the episode notes for links to all the stories we covered. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.